Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. My name is Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. One of the things that we really care about is our members and improving the world with through their work. We certainly, on a daily basis, focus in on helping them to connect to clients, to resources, and other key leaders around the world to help them grow their business. It turns out, the more they do that, the better the world gets, or at least that's what our belief is. The thing about trade is that it's something that requires not just speaking, but listening and negotiating and mediating. And for long-term sustainability of business to occur, not a lot of angry words can really happen within the framework of that. You occasionally in business, yes, you might get a little ticked off at each other, but for it to sustain, you've got to eventually kind of digest what's happening and work with your partner. And boy, that would be a great attribute to have for everyone in the world. Wouldn't this be an amazing world if everybody had that quality? A lot of the problems that happen, probably even from food, certainly war and anger between different groups around the world, stems from people being angry and really not listening to each other. So we started a program within Global Chamber, an initiative called Global is Good. That the concept that if we could just be a little bit more global, all of us, the world will be better faster. And I can't think of anybody better. And I'm really happy and pleased that Shrijeet Mishra is joining us for the first of many conversations, because when we last chatted, it's been maybe at least 6 months. In our first introductory call, I was so impressed with his worldview, his ideas around innovation, his thought process around business and globalization. And so when I thought of, wow, who would be a great person to kick things off, I thought of Shrijeet. So Shrijeet, I really enjoyed our last conversation, and I really appreciate, given how busy you are, that you take some time today to talk about this idea. And just share some thoughts. How have you been since we've last chatted? What have you been up to?
Doug, first, thank you for your kind words. I know it's been 6 months, but mutually, I also thought that conversation was very, very mutual and beneficial to me as a learning experience as well. Well, last 6 months have been very hectic. As a company, post the pandemic, there has been, fingers crossed, businesses coming back into their own, with consumers, customers having their own issues. But from these issues come up the opportunities, and that's the way we have been looking at things. We've also just announced a new business getting into B2B e-commerce and a marketplace, which is a very new digital-first business that our company, Aditya Birla Group, is got into. It's been a very busy 6 months, but nevertheless, lots of learning, lots of unlearn to learn new things, because the environment has completely changed, in the last 2 years.
What a world, huh? COVID really rocked us right to the core. I love your concept of unlearning. How do you unlearn? How do you, other than like being, catastrophically impacted by so many things through this, is that the only way that we unlearn, or are there better ways than just being shaken to the core?
No, I think that, look, learning is, like I'm saying, it's a mindset. Are you really, if you have to be global, it's a mindset. Operating and creating, mutual benefits is next. But it's first a mindset. To me, it's about developing 3 things. I think first is about having or understanding your true north. What is the purpose that you have as an individual. The second is to be more versatile. And I can explain what versatility to me means. And the third is a willingness to fail. Now, if you look at the new world, I mean, I keep talking about to my colleagues that we have actually moved from a VUCA world to what I call a finer world. VUCA, everybody understands, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. But I truly mean finer world today after the pandemic. Pandemic has pivoted and accelerated change and has shifted the business environment. And I think finer stands for F for flexible, I for intuitive, N for nonlinear, E for excitable, and R for responsible. So we are actually, no pun intended, we are moving from a VUCA to a finer world where we have to understand the cross linkages that exists between each individual, between industries, government, academia, and we need to find ways of working in this new world. So to me, this area of one of the big things that we need for professionals and for companies to understand is that everybody is questioning after this time period, what am I doing? What is the purpose? What is my purpose that is guiding me at the center of where I want to spend time, with whom I want to spend time, where should I put my energy, etc., etc. And I think companies that do not have a purpose and individuals today, in fact, like I said, in the last 2 years, they've really questioned this. What is their true purpose? So companies have to first create a true purpose. Why? What is the raison d'etre for them to exist? And when that matches, that becomes an interesting place for people to work. So I'll give you my purpose as I work through my life, early in life. And I say it all the time. It's about giving more than you take. And I underline the next two words, in any relationship. Not in a relationship that matters only, in any relationship. Because only when you think that you give more than you take in any relationship, that relationship develops. If you take more than you give, then that relationship begins to dwindle. And I think that's the first point from a purpose perspective that I realized about myself. And Aditya Birla Group, in many ways, and if you look at the history of this company, it actually does this for 150 years plus. It's been an organization that really, truly cares, and not just about its employees or its products or its brands, but about the environment in which they operate, the people that the community in which they work, and they're known in this country and beyond. It's a truly global company which understands the power of community. That's the first one. The second one, as I said, is a willingness to fail. My fundamental belief in life is if you're not failing, you're not taking risks. And if you fail, you must, because try you must, but fail small, fail fast. Share and celebrate failure as much as you share and share and celebrate success. In my team, there are two questions that we ask every time we meet in a formal meeting. What did we fail last quarter in personal life and in professional life? It connects us to each other and binds us as human beings better than just being professional guys with some jobs. So it's very important that we understand what we failed in and what we succeeded in. The second thing we ask is, what did you do for the first time in your life? If you did something for the first time in your life, you actually grew. That is the time you grew. Just to let you know, last week, I don't know swimming. I'm very worried about getting into deep sea, but I did get into the sea and did the undersea walk. It took the Mickey out of me because it was tough. It was a fear that I was conquering in me. And that, I think, is real growth. I think it's good to fail, but you should not fail in the same area. That's being stupid. And you must share failure, because that's the only way people will not fail in that area, by learning from your experience. So fail you must, because at the end, fail helps you to develop your determination and your instinct that you should trust as you go through. The last one is about versatility. I mean, this world is no longer, it's a world, as I call, of simultaneity. Succeeding now becomes on simultaneously addressing conflicting demands and not necessarily choosing between one or the other. It's an and world, it's not an or world. It's this and that. It's paradoxical in some time, top line and bottom line, immediate and long term. If you do not look at this um, uh, simultaneity of versatility, it deprives you of learning. Uh, to make this happen, you must be willing to be adaptive and, most importantly, listen and learn. The real issue, when you don't listen well, gets past you even without you realizing that it has got past you. So to me, these three things: versatility, how do you make sure that you are willing to fail, and most importantly, having your own true north, your purpose that matches an organization purpose. These three are crucial in the new world.
So, when you started your conversation there and those points, it reminded me, and you alluded to it as well in your own life, where we have a moment. In mine, it was I was cruising along and my grandfather died, and it allowed me, in some ways, I mean, these things happen, right? They have to happen. But for me, I wasn't expecting it, and in a way, it was a gift because it allowed me to do what you just described, not be as articulate as you were in terms of finding those 3 points, but at least the first point of what am I doing? Why am I here? And these are questions that not only do we need to ask as individuals, but as companies, right? Like,
Absolutely.
why are we here as a company, and
Yeah.
how do we sustain? Do we want to sustain? What kind of impact do we want to have with the current things that we're doing, and maybe in the future? These are things I'm no doubt that you wrestle with, and that any business around the world would wrestle with as well if they're going to sustain it. Isn't that correct? And it seems like,
Absolutely.
unfortunately, it's a failure or a death or something traumatic that rocks our boat, if you will, to get us to think, gee, maybe I need to be thinking about it. So is COVID then, the last couple of years, that rocking the boat, the death in the family, the gift, if you will, which is definitely, so many people died, so it was a terrible tragedy. It's allowing us as a world to reconsider individual and connectivity opportunities.
Yeah. In fact, just like you talked about your grandfather, during COVID, I lost both my parents in 5 weeks.
Wow.
Exactly 5 weeks of each other. Now that, not that it makes you question, but you wonder how fragile the world is, how life is fragile. One of the things that I learned very early in my life is that, like you said, we all know this is going to happen, but when it happens, it's a very different experience. And I was very close. Why should I say I am very close to my parents. Okay. And I believe a lot of who I am and what I've become, they have a big role to play in it. And I'm ever thankful to the two of them to have brought me up the way they did and teach me about life. They used to talk about 3 things. Dad used to talk about G, L, and E. Now, G stands for greed, L stands for laziness, and E stands for ego. He said, look, young man, if ever your GLE factors are out of bounds, are off proportion, are not balanced, you will destroy yourself. And if a company that you work or a function that you work, its GLE balance is not there, it will destroy the function, it will destroy the company, it destroys political parties, it destroys nations, it destroys the world. And I've applied this GLE factor very simply in my life. It happened today with somebody I knew. And I said, look, think about it. He was a colleague of mine, and we, in my team of 150 people, we talk about this GLE factor. And we say, look, is our GLE factor today slightly off balance? It just gives you a sense of, and which part of it? Is it the ego part that's playing today? havoc in our thinking? Or is it something else? Is it the laziness part that is forcing us to say, let's wait for the other guy to come back? What's it that's holding us back? Is it greed? So it's just a simple format that my folks gave me, which I'm ever thankful. It's a very simplistic way, but tells you whether you're off balance or you're on. And the GLE factor is not just important, was not just important earlier, and in this new world, even more so. And I completely agree. When you lose somebody, that's where it makes you question. Wow, it's just a very, very finite world. And when they leave, you don't even have any trace of them. Where did they go? Instantly in front of your eyes they went, and it's so it is a trauma. But I think what you should do is we should celebrate what they taught us, should celebrate what they stood for, should celebrate what they contributed to society, and take learnings from it to see how we can actually create a difference in the later years. My father used to feed um, um, we have poor people in this country. uh, they used to come home on a Sunday, and I would see him on a Saturday planning his Sunday pieces for these people who came home. And I often wondered that these are, how does he, and he spends time like this by contributing back. Anybody who came home and asked him, I'm coming home, what should I get for you? He would say, get me seeds. And anybody who went away from home, he would give them a packet of seeds and say, throw it in nature and let nature take care of it. It was his way of creating a green revolution. Simplistic thing. I don't know whether you achieve or not, but what I picked up from that was when they passed away, there were hundreds of people who came and stood at the gate praying for the first 15 days. We didn't know who they were. But they came. That's real earnings. The reality is that if you learn from their lives, and this is true of organizations, when organizations fail, we think failure is a disaster. No, failure must teach us. And we must share failure to be able to win in the long run with each other and learn from each other, contribute to each other. There should be there's no harm in failing. It's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fail.
It goes back to the potential damage of your ego, right? If I fail,
Yeah.
I'm not a person.
Yeah.
That's hard to overcome. That thing that we're taught, or many of us are taught as children. We're speaking with Shrijeet Mishra, Chief Innovation Officer at Aditya Birla Group. You're based out of Mumbai. And really appreciate you taking the time today to share more about your thoughts about business, about globalization, innovation, and all the things that matter, including life lessons. You're talking about things that undoubtedly people at Aditya Birla Group understand because you have an ability to communicate to them and lead them and for them to be part of the process. And so hopefully and undoubtedly within their own lives, they are able to think about ways, the concepts that you're talking about. Is this simply the way that we extend this knowledge and this ability to others? I mean, there are people that won't hear this message. There are people that will hear the message but not be ready for it. There are people that hear this message and will never be ready for it based on where they are in their life, maybe their education background or other things that are going on. We just need to do our best, right? How do you deal with that within your own family, around the circle around your company, your clients, and kind of your sphere of influence? How do you view that?
So look, I think when you start giving back in any way, and I think if you have customers and consumers at the heart of what you're doing, I worked across different companies, and Unilever for 24 years. I ran a media company for 6.5 years, Times of India, and now I'm with Aditya Birla Group. These are all as varied companies as you can get, which is from an FMCG to a media company to now a conglomerate. Um, but if you have the consumer and customer at the heart of what you do, I think you are okay. If you think that the consumer is there to buy your brands or services, you're highly mistaken. She's there to live her life. And if you make a difference to her life, sorry, I say her very often, that's the Unilever learning, because faster men know that they do nothing. It's all the family and the women who take the calls. Better they will be in their lives. In many ways, uh, as long as you know you're able to make a difference in the day of her life, you will succeed. But if you don't, you won't. That's the first point. So there are certain fundamentals that don't change. And I think as long as you understand the fundamentals, I think you will be okay. The second fundamental that we believe very strongly is that creating value through top line, bottom line, cash, or driving a sustainable business is a necessary condition for success, but is not necessarily a sufficient condition for getting valued as a good company. There are many other elements that get into it when you are valued as an organization. Uh, the third point I would like to make is when you think like a consumer company and you operate like a technology or manufacturing company. I mean, there is nothing called, this is a manufacturing company, or that's a B2B company, or a B2C company. Every company must think like a consumer company and must operate like a responsible technology and manufacturing company. Underline the word responsible technology and manufacturing company. That's the third point. And the fourth point I would make is that you must think learning, as I said, is a mindset. If you believe 1 plus 1 is 2 in this new world, you're completely wrong. 1 plus 1 is 11. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 111, not 3. That's the new maths. And if you understand that outside in innovation, size should not matter. Outside in innovation, learning through partnerships, whether it's a startup, it's an academia, it's a government, it's an organization, another big organization, doesn't matter. If you can partner outside in to complement your core strengths, you will be successful in the new world. And in many ways, we believe, therefore, that thinking like a consumer company and operating like a responsible technology and manufacturing company is the way to go. Let me just give you a simple way to think about this. Imagine an A, okay? On one side of the A is a pillar of consumer customer centricity. And imagine A is like a growth arrow for a company. Consumer customer centricity and driving businesses sustainably are the two big pillars for future success. You have to do both of these simultaneously. You cannot just think consumer customer and not think of driving businesses sustainably. You have to do a combination of the two for it to be successful. And all other things like digital, which is a way of life, innovation, whether it's inside out or outside in, or partnerships, which is with government, academia, startups, etc., is the part of the A that connects the two sides. And in many ways, therefore, the two pillars are consumer customer centricity and driving business sustainably, while everything else like digital, innovation, partnerships are all enablers. And that's the way we think about growth in the future, which will help us think like a consumer company and operate like a responsible technology and manufacturing company. Last and not the least, I sincerely believe that there are many examples that I can take off. At the end, you have to be clear about what is your role. Are you there to only maximize shareholders, or are you looking at stakeholders? And I think here that shift from a shareholder's profitability to a stakeholder's profitability has already moved in this world. And I think it's going to be only accelerating even more than you can imagine.
Interesting.
So I was just saying that I think this whole point about looking at an A model of growth, driving consumer customer centricity, driving sustainable business, with everything else being enablers like innovation, like digital, like partnerships, is the way we are thinking about future growth.
I like that model of thinking about customers, thinking about the business model, if you will, right, to keep it sustainable, and then utilizing the enablers. You talked earlier about e-commerce that you're implementing right now. Technology is driving change and opportunity, right? I mean, it's really opening up the world. And so when I hear that globalization is ending, I reel back and think, well no, it's just like anything else, right? It's changing, or at least that seems that way to me. How would you view when you hear the word globalization and what's happening in the world? Do you think of opportunity? Do you think of danger? Do you think of that there's ending or something terminal in what's going on? How do you view what's happening in the world and moving forward?
Doug, my view is I'm an eternal positive guy. I fundamentally believe whatever happens is for the good. That's the way I see it. And you will go through cycles of up and down. Okay. But this globalization is a one-way ticket. This whole coming together of humankind, coming together of countries and companies, working in partnership models is a one-way thing. It's not something that is going to be overnight reversed. There will be a few hitches. That's okay. But I think fundamentally, it's the people who are creating the confusion are in some way actually creating the opportunities as well. You can look at an issue and you can say this is either a problem or it's an opportunity. I believe we are living in a very, 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 in a world that is not necessarily, like I said, it's extremely volatile, extremely volatile.
Yeah.
But that creates its own advantages as well. Look at the way digitalization has gone in the last 2 years. Think about how it's gone. Yes, COVID has been extremely sad because so many people have lost their lives. So have I. I have lost my parents too. But it has taught us how to survive in a new kind of world. The time it would have taken to build a digital culture in certainly the country that I operate in has changed dramatically. So there are positive spins to everything.
Sure.
In the same way, let's look at the global story that's going on. It's bringing different parts of the world even closer than before. Yes, it is alienating a few, but it is bringing most of the world closer yet again. So fundamentally, I believe it's a big area of opportunity.
Okay.
I believe we shouldn't just we shouldn't just let it go like a problem. We should think, what can we do to convert this to an opportunity? Maybe it's a time when some companies come closer, countries come closer, trade becomes easier, willingness to work together becomes easier, and the solutions that come out are way better than what we thought it will be. So I'm an eternal optimist, Doug, and I am very, very optimistic about the future. We thought when the pandemic hit us that we will, we are manufacturing primarily. We used to be a manufacturer. We are a manufacturing company, global manufacturing company, $48 billion, $50 billion in revenue. I mean, we are 50% of our turnover comes from outside of India, right? How do we make this happen in a world that is so volatile? But in this situation, people came around and said, no, we will make it work. And I can tell you, Doug, the last 2 years have made us more resilient than ever before. And our performance is showing, and it is really showing in our performance. And that's the way you should take it. And I think that's what is showing me giving me the confidence that indeed you can take a situation. I mean, you can take any situation and convert it into a negative. Or you can think, what's the positive spin to this that I'm missing?
Sure.
And when you start looking at the positive spin of it, I'm 100% confident that human mind is made for the positive spin and not for the negative one. So I'm very, very hopeful that we will come out as a much more resilient world and a much more closer world than we've ever been. This thing that you've just started, which is this whole thing about, global is good, completely echo with it. Completely echo with it. We must share unashamedly. We must come closer unashamedly. We must make sure that there are no barriers unashamedly, because only then and only then will we be able to understand what the real issues are. How do we solve in this new world? It's like saying, I am happy, but my value chain is not happy. How can I be happy for long if my value chain is not happy? I may be sustainable, but my value chain is not sustainable. It doesn't make sense. He won't be there tomorrow to supply things to me. Yeah? So
Sure.
you have to carry people along. So you can either say sustainability is a disaster and it's a huge cost, or you can say sustainability is a brilliant thing that's going to create the best values in the future. I am of the latter type. I believe it's the second time that it is the best thing that has happened to the world, to actually start thinking and say, look, making profit, is it making shareholders profitability? Yes, it's an important piece. It's not the only thing. There are other stakeholders in it, and we must work to make sure that works. So it depends on which side of the coin you want to look at. Like I said, I'm an eternal optimist. I believe very strongly that this is an opportunity and not an issue at all.
I love that, because sustainability relates to things like, if you have a waste stream of something, just dumping it on your neighbor because you doesn't make sense, in a globalization terms, right? Because somebody is hurt by that. It goes back to your earlier points about working for good on a daily basis, and the concept of karma. I think a lot of what you talked about is karma, right? Providing good versus bad. I'd like to finish up with some things that we probably violently agree on, but in the meantime, I have one question that I've been really wrestling with, that I think your extreme positive and innovative view might help not just me but others. One of the things about the world right now that's happened, and that actually has happened throughout history, but here we have Russia invading Ukraine, and there's people dying, and there's a country doing something that's really bad. And I'm frustrated. I don't know what to do. We support them. We have them. We have Global Chamber Ukraine, and we've had a couple different meetings where we've talked through it, and I watch others just don't do anything visibly to support these people. And so whether it's them or the Chechens in China or the poor on the street here in Scottsdale, I walked past, I bought some water for an event, and as I left the store, there was a man with tattered clothes sitting right there next to the Albertsons. And like, what do you do? How can you help? We can't help everything. There's a saying in one of my favorite movies, it's much easier to wear slippers than to carpet the world. There's lots of bad things. When I first saw someone, I think it was somewhere near Mumbai, one of the suburbs, someone actually showering on the sidewalk, it shocked me to the core. Like, oh my God, this is happening in the world. So we can't solve every problem. But in business, there are certain things we should be doing, like recognizing some of the atrocities that are happening, right? How do you kind of justify your daily action in business and private through some of the things that are happening in the world, whether it's the poor person on the corner or whether it's an invader of a country that doesn't seem to be the right or fair thing to do?
So let me I mean, you've asked several questions in that.
I'm really struggling with this. Sorry.
No. I think it's really coming from your heart. Look, my view on some of these issues, we are perhaps going through one of the worst times in the world in many ways, and not just Ukraine and Russia. It's, you start on the left and you go to the right, it's across the board. It's all across the world. We have very, very different kind of personalities that are taking different kinds of action across the world. But I'll tell you, there are many positive sides to it as well. I don't think Ukraine would have got the help that it did as fast as it did, as quickly as it did. You wouldn't have had a world that came united as quickly as it did.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have been able to push back. Ukraine wouldn't have been able to push back as quickly as it did to a Russia. And this is where the resilience story begins to unfold. This is where we need to find the positive side. On the other hand, the man on the street, you talked about it, and you're absolutely right. If we all took care of that little thing that you can and make the world slightly better than what you saw yesterday, by simple acts, I think you would have done your job. This company, one of the big reasons I joined this company 4 years back, a little over 4 years back, was because their values, their governance, their transparency, and their openness to create, like I said, a difference to the society in which they operate is unbelievable. Next time you're here in India, I'll actually take you around to the factory places, and you should see how they've invested in those cities. They are very far away when they started, but today they are bustling cities with families taken care of in terms of education, health, malls, temples, what have you. It's unbelievable that an organization thinks as much as it does about the entire community in which it operates, like this company. So you take care of the man in the street by making sure that you're giving them opportunity to work, and you're giving them the benefits that they certainly deserve and desire through the work and through the profits that you make. So if you go back to the fundamentals of E, S, and G, that's what it talks about. It talks about 3 areas. It talks about the whole concept of environment, social, and governance. Now, if you think that the importance, the whole sustainability game is not just E. People make a mistake by thinking it's only about E. Not at all, my friend. It is about as much about S as much as it is about G. It is about making a difference to society in the way you work, in the way you operate, the kind of people you keep, the kind of openness in HR culture that you build, right? And it's about G, it's about governance, it's about transparency. Not just be transparent, but you must be seen to be transparent. I think people sometimes forget that driving a business sustainably is not just about environment. Yes, it's a big part, but there is also about social benefits and the governance aspect, which we must not forget. And I think even there, it is not just about you as a company, but it's about engaging with the entire value chain to extend value and life of the product. You to engage with employees internally to reduce waste and resource efficiently. You to apply the sustainability lens to innovation or new products, whatever you launch and any new investments that you make. And most importantly, you must have a vision on sustainability to actually make sustainability create value for all its stakeholders, not just shareholder, create stakeholder value. And that's what I think will create the value in the future. To go back to that point, look, there are certain things that we have to make ourselves heard. I think if we do not express ourselves clearly, and if we do not, even if your view on an issue is different from mine, if you are able to tell me why your view is different, and I'm able to tell you why my view is different, at least we'll come a little closer than standing apart on two sides and imagining why you're on the other side and I'm on this. This is the fundamental thing that some of these so-called radical wars have done. It's got nations together. It's got people getting closer. It's getting cultures closer. It's getting industries closer. It's getting businesses closer. And I think there is a very positive spin-off that I expect out of this. Yes, we'll go through a little bit of a trough, But I think when you come out of it, as you emerge from this, it'll be stronger. Here is my guess, and here is my prediction. You will find a stronger Ukraine that you've never seen in your lifetime. And an Ukraine that will be center stage in the world, that will make a difference to the world. The ambassador of India is a friend of mine who was there. And I've been regularly chatting with him when he at the wartime, and it's amazing the kind of things the resilience that he talks about of people, and I think that's what is more important than anything else. It's not just them; it's also about Russian people. The reason why Russia is not able to go through as quickly as it would have wanted to is because Russian people don't want this war. They are saying, these are all our brethren. You created a line on the wall and said, that's you and that's me. There are relatives on the other side of the road. Yeah, come on. So the people have come closer, and I'm very, very hopeful that we are getting into a world out of this, which will be very different from what we see today. Yes, today we are in a difficult phase, and we will go through a difficult phase. But as we come out of it, I'm very, very hopeful, not just hopeful, I'm guaranteeing you that it'll be a different world that will be more positive than where it is today. Very, very positive.
We're speaking with Shrijeet Mishra of Aditya Birla Group, Chief Innovation Officer. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your insights today. Very inspiring, and you've given me some really great ideas and thoughts, and I'm sure to our audience as well. I wonder if we could wrap up, and I'd like to have you either reiterate or bring up any other points that you want to make. But would love to start your recap with the question: is global good?
Like I said, global is good, but this global is a new global where we have to understand we are going through a global phase, which perhaps is a little not something that you and I recognize or understand. But I am very hopeful that fundamentally human nature, the difference between a being and a human being is very simple, that you care. And that nature, you can, however, whatever you may do with revenue, cash, war, the fundamental nature of human beings to connect, you will not take away. You will not be able to take away. And I think that's the power of people coming together. I believe, however, global is good, but this global is a new global where we have a few things that have changed. We have to reassess our own existence and our company's existence and the group and the nation we live in, their existence through a purpose. And we must recognize and understand or try to unearth what that purpose is. The second change that I think that has happened in this new world is that you need to be flexible and remain agile. Everybody talks about it. The shift is not restricted to the digital arena. It needs policies, processes. It needs a mindset that needs to change to be flexible. I keep telling my people that, sometimes people say that, you get old. It's a definition of what you think is old. Old, if you are a sponge and you're willing to learn, you never get old till you are in this world. If you're a person who's a learning mindset and has an agile mindset, you will go far in the new world. The next thing that I would say that has changed is a digital first mindset, not digital. How do I improve my digital presence? No, it's about digital first mindset. It is no longer about saying it's a linear growth that I'm expecting through digital. It's about exponential growth that we should expect with digital. So this world is imagining exponential growth with digital, and that's changed in this new global, the global that is good. Fourth, collaborations are going beyond functions and beyond boundaries. It is the kind of, so this whole workplace, who will do the job, where will he do the job from, and how will he do the job? All three aspects have changed. The workforce of the future has changed. Gig workers are going to become the future. No company can afford a good person. One company can afford a good person in the future, and no good person can afford one company in the future too. You have to work. You have to work in an environment which is collaborative, well beyond your functions. Because when you look at the A model, there's nothing else but collaboration. Everything is interconnected. You have to work in a collaborative mindset. You have to work in a collaboration beyond functions and beyond your own geographic boundaries. And the last and not the least is that ESG is creating value. It's about creating value for stakeholder. It is not about a cost or a law that you have to adhere to. You have to start spinning it on its head and say, how can I create an advantage for my consumer customers and my business, therefore, by creating a big positive through ESG? And I believe these 5 things are the new changes in the world that is good. We are going through a difficult time, but I'm absolutely clear and hopeful that the world that we'll come out of in the next 5 to 7 years, when I'm growing younger, I am very hopeful that this world will be there even better than where I started.
Did you say that you're growing younger?
Yes, I must, because that's the only way to survive. Because that mindset of sponge, the way to think, the way to learn, you can learn from anybody. It depends on how you think. It is not intellectual power. It's a balance of IQ, EQ, SQ, and DQ that works. IQ is intelligence quotient. EQ is emotional quotient. It's about how you feel about yourself. Only when you feel good about yourself, you feel good about others. SQ is when you feel good about yourself, you're good with society and people and countries. And it doesn't matter where you put somebody. If you are comfortable with yourself, you'll be comfortable in any environment. And DQ is about, the other SQ is about spiritual quotient. Do you believe that there is a power beyond you that helps you and guide you? I strongly believe that. I strongly believe that we have a saying in our local language that everyone has a part in this drama to play. And everybody will go into timelessness. Because when you feed someone who's hungry, you're feeding yourself. When you clothe somebody who's not having clothes, you're clothing yourself. And when you hug someone, you're actually hugging yourself and giving yourself that embrace. So there is no difference. It's one world, it's one life. You must make the most of it.
Thank you for playing a part in our play, Shrijeet Mishra, Aditya Birla Group. Fascinating, interesting, intriguing, innovative, inspiring, positive, and also hopeful for a better world, to not just be a sponge, but to take that in, being enabled by technology and other attributes that are happening all around us, and make our personal life, business life, and world a little better all along the way. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all of that you shared today, and we look forward to our next conversation.
Doug, as always, thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you, Global Chambers, for giving this opportunity. I have not kept anything away from my own mind, because at every point, I don't have a mind, I have a heart, and I speak it out.
We love that
God
heart.
bless.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too have a great day, and let's catch up soon. When you're in India, I look forward to hosting you, and I want to show you some parts of India that you may not have experienced.
I would love that. I look forward to it, and vice versa. That offer is always open. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a lovely